Calling all 90s kids, calling all 90s kids. Strap in for a trip to Hillwood as we go over one of the staples of Nickelodeon animation, Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold first aired back in 1996 on October 7th. 5 seasons and 100 episodes later, the show officially ended on June 8, 2004. The show was immensely popular, spawning 2 movies, one of which came about in 2017, a whole 13 years after the show's departure. So with that, put on your nostalgia hats and hit that subscribe button as we dive right into Hey Arnold.
Move it, football head! Hey Arnold!
Where better to start than episode 1, Downtown as Fruits. But first, let's introduce the titular character, Arnold. Arnold is a cool, calm, collected, and extremely compassionate 4th grade boy that attends PS 118 with his friends. His unusually shaped head has granted him the nickname Football Head from his classmate and bully, Helga. Speaking of Helga, in this opening episode, she's in charge of the school play and she means business. Not everyone shares her passion for the different food groups though. And when it comes time for the play to begin that night, Arnold and his best friend Gerald play hooky and ride the bus all the way downtown. Only they're 9 years old with no money. Dressed as fruits, probably not the most ideal situation after all.
At least let's get rid of these costumes. I can't. Why not? I didn't wear anything underneath.
However, just as the boys mention their predicament, a car drives by and launches a paper bag full of money at them. Arnold and Gerald take the money and buy themselves some snazzy new clothes and run the pool tables at a nearby pool hall.
He's 2 minutes late.
Only the money they're using wasn't meant for them. And when the men that were meant to take the money discover Arnold and Gerald have been using it, they chase them out of the hall. The boys end up finding refuge in Zamboni Jones's psychic palace. Here, Arnold realizes how he's wronged Helga, and the boys return to school to finish the play to make up for their absence.
Wait till I get my hands on you, Arnold, you beautiful creature.
Next, let's jump into the episode The Little Pink Book to learn a little bit more about Helga. The episode opens with Helga doing the most classic of all bullying activities, spitballs. But to Helga, Arnold isn't just the target of torment, he's in fact her super secret crush. Nobody is allowed to know though.
In the classroom, my heart doth swoon, and yet I want to beat your face in.
Else it might tarnish her reputation of toughness. Matter of fact, Helga's crush on Arnold runs so deep. She often writes poetry and thinks in Shakespearean monologues whenever she writes about him in her diary. With this in mind, you can imagine Helga's panic and despair when she realizes she left her little pink diary on the bus with Arnold and Gerald. Oh, yikes.
Whose wet hot lips do I want to taste? 3 guesses, stupid. Arnold, Arnold, Arnold!
Lucky for Helga, she never actually signed her name in the book, except for one little acrostic poem at the back. This means that the boys have no idea who this mysterious wordsmith is that has a crush on Arnold, but they will stop at nothing to figure it out.
Ruth McDougal was there. Ruth! Arnold. She's in the 6th grade.
Arnold and Gerald meet in their lab, aka Arnold's room, and begin conducting their investigation. Unbeknownst to them, Helga will also do whatever she can to get her book back, and hides out all night in Arnold's closet. The following morning, Arnold and Gerald are no closer to discovering the truth. When they arrive at school, Helga tears the acrostic poem off the back page and her secret is safe. For now. This episode, called Stoop Kid, is our first introduction to one of the many urban legends in Hey Arnold. The kids of Hillwood are all about their urban legends, and there are quite a few scattered throughout the series. Arnold's best buddy Gerald is considered the keeper of the urban legends thanks to how well he's able to relay these stories. Sid, another one of the kids on the block, will almost always accompany and announce Gerald when the time comes to orate one of the legendary stories. In this episode, the kid's football ends up lying on the stoop of the fabled Stoop Kid. The legend goes that as a baby, Stoop Kid was left on the same stoop he guards to this very day. He grew to view his stoop as not only his home, but his family. And allegedly, having no family of his own, Stoop Kid grew to be very mean and very protective of his stoop, lashing out at anyone that so much as looks at it. And unfortunately for the kids, their football is stuck on that stoop.
And yay, even physical violence. The end.
Good job, Gerald.
Thanks.
Arnold, however, doesn't believe the hearsay and goes up to Stoop Kid to try and get the ball back.
Yo, get away from my my stoop! That's right, you! This is my stoop!
He does so successfully, but inadvertently embarrasses Stoop Kid in the process. Arnold feels awful for tarnishing Stoop Kid's reputation, so he helps Stoop Kid find the confidence he needs to leave his stoop.
I didn't know there was gonna be so many people here.
Don't worry about them, Stoop Kid. Just keep concentrated.
And overcomes the legend of the Stoop Kid. Wow, I think I've just used the word stoop more times in that summary than I have in my entire life. In the next episode, The Vacant Lot, the kids have been trying to play a game of baseball for a few days. Traffic and other disturbances have prevented them from doing so.
That's it. I'm out of here. Let me know when pigs fly so we can finish this game.
To remedy their problem, Arnold, Gerald, and all the other kids on the block clear out trash from a vacant lot and set up a makeshift baseball field. They name it Gerald Stadium. I mention this to bring to attention that a key aspect to Hey Arnold are that all of the other kids that make up Arnold's friend group are all friends. There are quite a few of them, and we'll make sure to get to each of them.
Strike one. Strike two.
Back to Gerald Field, after a full day of baseball, the kids pack up and go home. But the following day, all of the adults have taken over the lot.
There are checkers on the pitcher's mound.
Ha! King me.
After showing how much work they put in to make Gerald Field, the kids win back their vacant lot, and their baseball games can continue. In this episode, door number 16, we get a bit of an insight into where Arnold lives. Sunset Arms Boarding House. Sunset Arms is home to 13 tenants, including Arnold and his grandparents. Under this roof, there are a number of interesting characters.
I hate this traffic jam every morning.
Hey, 13 boarders, one bathroom. What do you expect?
But this episode focuses on the mysterious Mr. Smith. He's a very private individual, having hardly ever spoken to his fellow tenants. He receives his food via dumbwaiter, and even has his own private bathroom. A luxury not known by the other tenants who must share one bathroom in the whole complex.
He's just a regular guy, like the rest of us.
When a mysterious package arrives at the boarding house, Arnold is determined to keep Mr. Smith's private life private. But he's also very intrigued about who Mr. Smith really is. So with Gerald's help, Arnold conducts an investigation to learn the truth. First, the boys stop off at Toller's Bowlers, the only place Mr. Smith could realistically buy his bowler hats.
Climbing these ladders at lunchtime for people. Even though it's the first time in a month, I suppose I should be happy.
Their findings run dry at the satellite industry skyscraper, but the boys see Mr. Smith enter a taxi, and so their chase ensues. Arnold and Gerald give up, though, when they spy Mr. Smith boarding a helicopter.
Come on, Arnold. No one will know. We can just tape it back up afterwards.
Back at the boarding house, the other tenants desire to know Mr. Smith's secret, and has gotten the better of them. They've tied up Grandma Gertie and Grandpa Phil. Things finally come to a head when the tenants open the package and quickly realize the error of their ways. Inside, nothing more than a picture of the tenants labeled family.
Package for Mr. Smith. Can I trust you to give it to him?
The very next episode, Arnold as Cupid, we meet another resident of Sunset Arms. Someone significantly less mysterious than Mr. Smith, Oscar Kokoschka. Mr. Kokoschka is a man of unknown Eastern European descent and lives with his wife, Susie Kokoschka. Their marriage, however, is far from perfect, and the two fight pretty consistently. In this episode, things blow up, resulting in Susie kicking Oscar out of their room.
You cannot stay here. You are not a good person. Not a good person at all.
Being the nice kid he is, Arnold allows Oscar to stay with him when the other residents refuse due to Oscar's selfish ways. Very quickly, though, Arnold grows tired of Mr. Kokoschka's lack of empathy. Oscar takes over Arnold's bed, gambles away his CD player, and distracts Arnold from studying.
I'll practice now. You can study tomorrow.
But Mr. Kokoschka, my test is tomorrow.
To remedy this situation, Arnold decides to step in and get Susie and Oscar back together again. She arranges a romantic moonlit dinner under the stars on the roof of Sunset Arms. However, Oscar's clumsy feet and selfishness again prove his undoing. The following morning, Oscar decides to leave Sunset Arms in shame. But just before he can leave, Susie jumps in and offers Oscar money to help out. And when Oscar refuses the money, Susie is surprised that he is thinking of someone else and forgives him, allowing him back home.
Oscar, that's the most beautiful thing you've ever said to me.
You keep the money?
For this episode, Arnold's Christmas, we're putting out a major character lore alert for Mr. Wynn. In this episode, Arnold gets Mr. Wynn as his secret Santa recipient, and he wants to make this Christmas extra special for him.
But I got Oscar.
I got Oscar too.
So did I.
What a coincidence!
So without raising suspicion, Arnold checks with Mr. Wynn about what he would really like for Christmas this year. That's when Mr. Wynn drops some major lore. About 20 years ago, Mr. Wynn lived in a small village in Vietnam with his daughter, May. At the same time, the war in Vietnam was ravaging the northern half of the country. So, wishing for a better life, he sought out refuge with the US. The only issue was that there wasn't enough room on the chopper out of the village for both of them and his daughter. So, he gave Mai over to the pilot in hopes she might find a better life outside of Vietnam. The pilot announced the name of a city in the US where he could find May, Hillwood. After a terribly long time, Mr. Wynn was able to immigrate to the US, but still has never been reunited with his daughter.
Everyone was trying to get out. Everywhere there was confusion. Somehow I got through.
This is his one wish for Christmas, to be reunited with May. Arnold dedicates his time to finding May if he can. With Gerald's help, Arnold arrives at the Federal Office of Information to see if they can find anything on May. Unfortunately for them, Mr. Bailey, the department supervisor, won't help unless Arnold and Gerald finish his Christmas shopping. And they do, almost. They nearly finish the list but miss one key item, a pair of Nancy Spumoni signature snow boots. Without this item, the deal between them and Mr. Bailey is off, therefore no chance of finding May. I mean, at this point it would take a Christmas miracle. And a Christmas miracle they will get. While Arnold and Gerald were out and about trying to find these boots, Helga has been scouring the mall looking for the perfect gift for Arnold.
From Helga and his uniquely football-shaped head will fill with thoughts about me, Helga Pataki.
When she overhears Arnold's plight, she thinks that by getting these boots to Mr. Bailey, Arnold will again believe in Christmas miracles. She then decides to take the boots she received for Christmas to Mr. Bailey.
But if you leave now, that little football-headed kid will never believe in miracles again.
On Christmas morning, there's a knock at the door, and Mr. Wynn is greeted by none other than his long-lost daughter, May. This episode, Wheezin' Ed, is an urban legend alert. We have the legend of Wheezin' Ed. During a day on the pier, Arnold looks over the water at Elk Island, the location of the legend that Gerald will now regale. In the 1920s, during Prohibition, the gangsters known as Wheezin' Ed called Elk Island home. He earned his name thanks to the ominous wheezing he would emit just before coming up behind someone and wringing their neck. Legend holds that his treasure lies buried somewhere on Elk Island, and many have met a grisly end looking for it. The very same island Arnold's looking at right now.
What a crack. That island isn't haunted, and there's no Wheezin' Ed.
But there be a treasure.
Arnold and his friends are always looking for a bit of adventure, so sure enough, they make their way out to Elk Island. Around the same time, two crooks by the name of Vic and Maury are making their way onto the island as well. This whole time, they've been using it as a base of operations for their counterfeit penny scam. Smart move considering nobody goes to the island thanks to the legend. Not so smart because, counterfeit pennies? Sure thing, boys, keep at it. The kids discover the caves where the treasure is allegedly buried. But instead of finding ancient doubloons or millions of dollars, they just find Vic and Maury's counterfeit pennies. And they find Vic and Maury themselves who chase the kids out of the caves.
These look a lot like pennies, only not made as good.
What? You mean counterfeit pennies?
Yeah.
Well, it's not the greatest treasure in history, but I consider that another urban legend debunked at the very least. Our next episode, Pigeon Man, does call for another urban legend alert, but is also one of those really hard-hitting episodes. The legend of the Pigeon Man goes as such. Numerous pigeons began flocking around one specific tenant in the pet shop district. No one was really sure why. That is, until one day, someone caught a glimpse of someone living among the pigeons at the top of the building, named the Pigeon Man. Some say he was half man, half bird. Is he an alien hatched from an egg? Does he eat worms and twigs to sustain himself? Is he a man in a chicken costume? Nobody knows for sure. Nonetheless, the pigeons flock there, which means that someone cares for them. That someone is the Pigeon Man.
So what's your point?
The point is, he's one crazy psychopathic freak.
And today, Arnold's pet carrier pigeon Chester is injured, and Pigeon Man is the only person Arnold can think of to help him. The reality of the Pigeon Man is a lot less mystical and legendary than the stories would have you believe. When Arnold approaches the figure with Chester, it turns out he's simply a hermit that prefers the company of pigeons. The next day, Pigeon Man has returned Chester to health and regales Arnold with the story of his childhood. He too attended PS 118, and during his time there, he was incredibly intrigued by birds. His friends, however, found his fascination too weird and they stopped talking to him. This has left Pigeon Man to prefer the company of birds over people.
I've seen you and your friends around the neighborhood, Arnold. The kids remind me of me when I was growing up over on 23rd Street.
By the end of their time on the building, Arnold invites Pigeon Man out for some pizza. While Pigeon Man is away from his home though, Harold, Stinky, and Joey decide to go up there and play a prank. But they actually completely destroy the entire scene, leaving feet everywhere and broken roosts. When Pigeon Man and Arnold return, they are appalled at the chaos before them. Pigeon Man talks with Arnold about the cruelty of some people, and how it's why he prefers to live alone, an outcast from society. Pigeon Man can understand birds. He can trust birds, but the same can't be said for people. With his home ruined, Pigeon Man decides it's time for him to leave. But before taking off, he tells Arnold that his kindness has helped him regain a little bit of faith that people can be good.
Hello, my little pigeon. I wish I was a pigeon.
Nonetheless, Pigeon Man has a duty to help the birds, and so his pigeons gather around him and they fly off into the sunset. For our next episode, Olga Comes Home, we get a glimpse into the home life of the Pataki family. Olga is Helga's older sister and former student of PS 118. She was practically universally loved by the whole community during her time in Hillwood, and is now residing out of state for college. Although, as I'm sure you've gathered from the title, Helga's older sister is coming home. Only Helga is none too excited about it. You see, Olga is essentially the favorite child of the Pataki family, always getting all the attention and praise for her performance in academics and the like. Praise and attention that Helga does not receive from her parents.
You're growing into quite a lovely young lady. Yeah, I'm a real beauty.
This has created a sort of rift between the sisters, and Helga decides as a way to get back at her older sister, she's going to change the grades on her report cards from the honorable A+ to the awful B+. Now that is devious. This sends Olga down a spiral of sadness and dejection, as though she's a failure.
So, I guess you're pretty depressed, huh?
The Pataki parents do whatever they can to try and cheer her up, but nothing works. Helga is absolutely elated with this new version of Olga at first, but when Arnold steps in as the voice of reason, she confesses to her older sister. And to the surprise of Helga, Olga decides not to rat out her little sister. According to Olga, all the praise and attention she gets from her parents is actually a bad thing. It builds up a lot of pressure on her, and she often feels worried about what would happen should she fail to live up to their great expectations. Although Helga felt that her sister was always been treated better, by the end, the two seem to have strengthened their bond.
Arnold, so moral, so compassionate, so giving. If only I were good and kind like that. But I'm not, so that's that.
Jumping right into the next episode, Sewer King. So far, we've met a load of interesting people from Hillwood. These wacky and kooky characters are a lot of what gives Hey Arnold its charm. But perhaps one of the wackiest is the man that goes by the name Sewer King. I'm sure you guessed it, he's the king in the sewers. This day, Arnold is tasked with retrieving Grandpa Phil's watch from the jewelry store. When he's interested by a hole being dug for construction in the sewers, he accidentally drops the watch in. Arnold descends into the smelly underbelly of Hillwood to get the watch back with Gerald. Down there, they discover a rat with Grandpa Phil's watch. The rat leads them directly to the Sewer King. Dangling around the Sewer King's neck is his royal icon, aka Grandpa Phil's watch. To earn it back, Arnold and Gerald must undergo the royal trial, chess. And weirdly enough, we learn in this episode that Arnold is insanely good at chess. He beats the Sewer King over and over, but the Sewer King refuses to give up.
8 out of 15?
Eventually, Arnold and Gerald get the watch from around the king's neck and successfully make a great escape from the sewers. Moving right along is the next episode, False Alarm. We get to meet a few more of Arnold's friends, starting with Eugene. Eugene Horowitz is a naturally optimistic and plucky boy in Arnold's grade. He's generally pretty positive despite the trail of mishaps that tend to follow him. And in this episode, another little mishap leads directly to him. Someone pulled the fire alarm, and all signs point to Eugene. But was it him? To find out, the class is brought to a makeshift courtroom. Defending Eugene, we have Stinky Peterson, the southern boy of their class. And on the jury, all of the other kids that make up Arnold's friend group.
Face it, Eugene, you're gonna fry.
I didn't do it.
The jury convenes in the library, and Arnold is convinced that Eugene is in fact innocent. The kids decide to go over the evidence one more time. Most notably, one piece of evidence was a Wanky Land pencil. Wanky Land is a local amusement park that Eugene was very specifically banned from thanks to his affinity for bringing misfortune and accidents. Therefore, the Wanky Land pencil cannot be his.
The Wanky Land pencil. Everyone knows Eugene.
Arnold's clever reasoning begins to fluster one of the other members of the jury, Curly. Curly is, at times, quite the oddball, and known for bizarre behavior. Often, it is the case that Curly serves as a minor antagonist throughout the show, and today is one of those days. After Arnold deduces that the fire alarm wasn't Eugene, Curly snaps and confesses that he set Eugene up as revenge. Some months back, Eugene borrowed and destroyed one of Curly's pencils, the Wanky Land pencil, and ever since, Curly has been trying to find a way to enact his revenge. By the end, though, Eugene's name is cleared from the record, and justice has been served.
That's right. Hi, did it. Hi, boom, the fire alarm.
The final episode of Season 1, Arnold's Valentine, sees Arnold caught in a love triangle, or, well, a square. As you may have guessed, it's Valentine's Day in Hillwood, and love is in the air. Arnold is absolutely smitten with Ruth McDougal.
Miss Slovak, what if we don't really care about anyone? What if we have never experienced love?
Then you'd be me.
Helga wants to find a way to show Arnold her affections, and Arnold's pen pal, Cecil, is on her way to America as a surprise. Yikes. Let's see how this plays out. Well, firstly, Arnold slips a Valentine into Ruth's bag, inviting her out to a romantic candlelit dinner that night. Then, Helga sneaks into the classroom to modify the letter Arnold received from Cecil, to make it sound like she's on the way to America for a different romantic dinner. From there, she plans on disguising herself so that she can get a romantic evening with her secret crush. Only Cecil actually is on her way to America. Uh-oh. This could get messy.
If there's one thing I know about Arnold, it's women. Hey, Carla, what's going on?
Stuff it, Squirt.
That night at dinner, a disguised Helga arrives at the restaurant, and nearly immediately, Arnold recognizes that something is up. Cecil looks nothing like her photos, and her accent is really American.
Cecile?
As far as Ruth goes, she has mistaken Arnold for just another member of the waitstaff whenever he arrives to show her to her seat, so it looks like he's stuck out there. And unfortunately, the same striking out fate remains for Helga. She tries to talk Arnold into realizing that he might actually have some feelings for this other girl, Helga, but all Arnold has to say is that she bugs him. Oh, bummer.
What I mean to say is perhaps there's a reason why this one certain girl bugs you.
And to top things off, Cecil does in fact show up, nearly ruining Helga's disguise. But leave it to Gerald to jump in and save the night. In the end, everybody seems to have, at the very least, learned a little bit more about love. And to not pretend to be somebody else completely in order to go on a date.
Well, we'll always have Chez Paris.
Au revoir, Arnold.
The episode Save the Tree kicks off Season 2 in an environmentally conscious way. Mighty Pete, the largest, oldest, and the only tree in the kids' neighborhood, is a source of pride and joy for Arnold and the gang. Everyone's confident it will stick around until the end of time, so you can imagine their distress when Big Bob, Helga's father, announces its removal for a new Big Bob's Beeper Emporium.
Bob's Beeper Emporium, and this time I'll be a 50% partner.
20.
40.
20.
30.
20.
Deal.
The kids, at first, try civil measures to stop the destruction of their beloved Mighty Pete, but when their calls for justice go unanswered, they come to no other choice but a classic sit-in. The very night that the tree is set to be demolished, all the kids sit up in their massive treehouse, refusing to come down. This includes Helga, who feels like siding with Arnold might earn his affection.
I hope they stop in time.
Gosh, she smells good.
When the bulldozer operator goes rogue, Big Bob punches him out of the driver's seat, meaning the massive machine is barreling towards Mighty Pete and the children.
If I hit the lever, I think I can can stop it.
If I hit the lever, I think I can stop it.
Not to worry though. Grandma Gertie swings in to save the day, and for their efforts, Big Bob decides Mighty Pete can stay. The next episode, Harold's Kitty, introduces us to the soft side of the otherwise brash Harold. No, we mean it, Sid. He can be kinda nice sometimes. When he finds an adorable little kitten in a trash can, Harold is mean and standoffish as he usually is. But after a while, he warms up to the little guy. Soon enough, Harold has grown attached to the kitten, and he's named it Cupcake, and the two become best buds. Just a boy and his cat. How lovely. Unfortunately for Harold, though, the kitten did have a collar and does rightfully belong to a different owner, Mrs. Ryle. Harold refuses to return Cupcake, and soon enough we have a standoff with Harold locked in his house and everyone else standing below trying to get the kitten from him. Even the police.
What?
This is Animal Control Air 1. Come out with the cat and your hands in the air.
Although things seem to be getting out of hand, Arnold is able to talk Harold down and return the kitten back to Mrs. Ryle. The episode Big Caesar calls for an urban legend alert. I like that. I'm going to keep doing that for the rest of the video. The legend in question, none other than Big Caesar. The tale goes as such. During the age of dinosaurs, there swam one fish so big, so mean, that the ancient Romans named him Big Caesar. However, as the plates shifted over the years, Big Caesar's hunting grounds grew smaller and smaller as new continents formed. Nowadays, it is said Big Caesar resides in the local lake, waiting for the day the plates shift again, so he might be able to return to vast waters once again.
There could be a prehistoric fish in City Lake.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. And we're gonna catch him.
Now, I know that story sounds pretty impossible, but even Grandpa has a tale about Big Caesar. In a real Moby Dick sort of way, Grandpa Phil has had an encounter with the massive beast, and he has been eager and waiting for the day he can get back out there to take down the beast. When it comes time to get on the water, things are relatively quiet at first. That is, until a massive beast flies over Arnold and Gerald's swan boat and pulls them all across the water. Big Caesar thrashes and splashes, puts up the best fight he can, but in the end, Arnold and Gerald actually catch him. They head back towards shore. But before they can get there, Arnold's compassion trumps his desires for fame and fortune, and he releases Big Caesar back into the water. Another day, another legend for Arnold. Our next episode, Miss Perfect, is one of those more emotional episodes that hits you right in the feels. A new girl just moved into town from the country, Lila Sawyer. She's very sweet and very polite, but also incredibly shy and nervous. She's a new girl in a new city attending a new school. Helga and the other girls initially jump in to try and take Lila under their wing to show her the ropes of how things work at PS 118.
You've got a lot to learn, Lila. We run things around here. Me, Ron, Phoebe, and all the other girls. We all get our own territory cut out for us.
However, their generosity quickly turns to jealousy, as Lila shows intelligence that rivals Phoebe, fashion that rivals Rhonda, and seems to be liked by just about everyone in school. How dare she, right? After a number of failed pranks, the girls finally hit their last straw with Lila's quote-unquote perfection, and humiliate her in front of the entire cafeteria, causing Lila to run out of the school in tears. The following day, Lila doesn't return to school for personal reasons, and Helga volunteers to bring Lila her homework. And this is where the episode really gets ya. Lila lives in a rundown apartment with her father, and the girls overhear a conversation held between the two of them. Lila and her father are already incredibly down on their luck. Her father's jobless, and they're barely making ends meet, resorting to cans of beans for lunch and dinner. The girls' torment, it's only making poor Lila's life harder.
How could we be so mean? The poor kid lying in there scared and miserable.
Now, of course, it's not all doom and gloom. Helga and the other girls apologize vehemently to Lila, restoring their friendship, and Lila's father receives a phone call telling him that he got the job he was looking for. Episodes like this one are where Hey Arnold really shines. The ones with typical shenanigans, but ones that also hold deeper messages about kindness to one another. Up next, we have Arnold's Halloween, and things are getting intergalactic in Hillwood. This Halloween, Arnold wants to prove that he can celebrate Halloween with the adults. And with the sudden craze of UFO Tonight on TV, Arnold knows exactly how he's gonna do it.
Ernie Wheelblade, the executioner!
Wait a minute. You said I was gonna be Frankenstein.
Along the same lines, Helga is inspired by her father's Close Encounter story to get her whole class to dress as aliens. That night at the Halloween party, Arnold and Gerald have begun the setup of their ultimate prank. On the roof, they have a gramophone, radios, and broadcasters set up, and down below, their costume classmates approach Sunset Arms. Uh-oh, I think I see where this is going.
Now it's opening, and something is coming out.
Gerald speaks into the gramophone rigged to amplify into the boarding house, giving false reports of a nearby UFO. And with Arnold's classmates quickly approaching, everyone in Sunset Arms begins to panic. To make things worse, Douglas Kane, host of UFO Tonight, picks up on Arnold's signal, and he too thinks the prank is real.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have grave news. Radio transmissions were picked up tonight in the East Side neighborhood.
And to make things triply worse, Stinky accidentally causes a citywide power outage when he turns on the lights at the water tower. All of this culminates in a massive panic throughout the whole of Hillwood. People flood the streets running for their lives. Some others, however, seek to take the fight to the aliens.
You and me have had this date for a long time, baby.
Everything comes to a head at the water tower when a catapult hits the water tower, washing off the makeup from the kids' costumes. Grandma Gertie restores power to the city, and Arnold vows to never pull a prank like that again, despite Grandpa Phil's approval. Our next episode, Phoebe Cheats, will serve as a nice introduction to another of the characters in the show, Phoebe. Phoebe is the brainiac of Arnold's friend group and is more often than not seen at Helga's side.
I'm very happy to announce the Citizens of the Month.
Phoebe, and Phoebe?
Gerald, Nadine, and Harold.
The kids are feeling a little poetic this time around for the upcoming poetry contest. We've already seen some of Helga's skills as a budding wordsmith, but what about Phoebe? Well, Phoebe's logic-driven brain makes it a little difficult for her to find metaphors that make real-world sense and work poetically. To remedy this, she looks to the best she can find in her poetry textbook. Due to her desire to be the best academically, Phoebe then decides to outright copy one of the poems from her book.
Your name, like a bell.
Phoebe goes on to win the Emily Dickinson statue, but the means by which she attains this accomplishment almost haunt her. And to make things worse, because she performed so well, she's now tasked with writing another prize-winning poem in the statewide contest. In the end, Phoebe's guilt and the haunting nature of the statue she won dishonestly overwhelms her, and she fesses up to her teacher. Poor thing.
Cheater.
But hey, she learned an important lesson about honesty, and I'm sure we all did when we first watched this episode. Moving right along, the episode Rhonda's Glasses will serve as our next stop on the Who's Who bus of Hey Arnold. The fourth grader in question, Rhonda Wellington Lloyd. Speaking of the bus, that's where this episode kicks off. There's a less than friendly dynamic on the bus for the kids of PS 118. Those categorized as geeks sit in the back, while the front is reserved exclusively for the popular kids. Rhonda is one of those popular kids, and she likes to make sure everyone knows it, refusing to allow anyone that looks even a little bit geeky to sit anywhere next to her. Unfortunately for Rhonda though, her status as a cool kid is about to change dramatically. During an eye exam at school, Rhonda finds out that she needs glasses. Gulp. Yeah, glasses. Which is apparently social suicide in Hillwood, because Rhonda and Rhonda's mom nearly have a meltdown at the optometrist.
Buckley, dear, we've got some truly dreadful news today. I'm still reeling. Our perfect little Rhonda needs glasses.
And sure enough, the next day on the bus, Rhonda is forced to sit in the back with those she so blatantly disrespected before. But it's not all bad. The geeks are nice kids. I mean, we've got Eugene back there, Sheena, Brainy, oh, and Curly. Let's just ignore the whole revenge thing a few episodes back.
I like your glasses, Rhonda. They kind of remind me of my aunt's. Please don't speak to me.
You want to borrow my new pocket protector? It's really cool.
At first, Rhonda has a difficult time accepting her new status at PS 118. However, after spending some time accepting her new lot in life, she grows to be quite the martyr for the geeks, even being labeled the queen of the geeks.
It's about time you show the other kids that below that pencil neck of yours beats a brave heart.
And as her first act as queen, Rhonda successfully intermingles the bus seats. Geeks and popular kids alike from hereforth shall live in harmony on the bus to PS 118. Continuing along with the next episode, Helga's Boyfriend. I know what you're thinking. Wait, Helga's boyfriend? I thought she had a crush on Arnold. She does, yes, and this whole episode is based on one of Helga's plots to win him over. Alongside this, it serves as a rare Stinky-focused episode. Stinky, the character, not the smell. Inspired by a movie she saw, Helga decides the best way to get Arnold to notice her is to make him jealous by getting herself a fake boyfriend in Stinky.
And when I sneeze, give me this handkerchief and say, bless you, darling. And say a lot of stuff like, oh, you're so cute when you're mad. And
Things, of course, don't go exactly according to plan for Helga. Poor Stinky does everything in his power to be the best pretend boyfriend that he can for her, but still, nothing seems to faze Arnold. Their failure culminates in Helga firing Stinky from the fake boyfriend position. And in an odd turn of events, Stinky ends up developing feelings for Helga despite her anger tone and rude attitude towards him. Stinky turns to Arnold to help him with this predicament, and Arnold arranges for Helga and Stinky to meet at the park.
oh, Arnold, my love, I count the minutes till we meet again. And it better be real soon or I'll pound the little rubberhead.
Only Helga is under the assumption that this meeting will be the other way around, and that Arnold will be meeting her, not Stinky. And of course, Helga once again blows off Stinky since her love belongs elsewhere. All's not lost for the Southern lover boy though, because after some words of encouragement from Arnold, he's able to find himself a date with another, maybe a bit nicer, girl.
I just can't believe it. Gloria?
For our next episode, Harold's Bar Mitzvah, Harold is becoming a man and undergoing the traditional Jewish initiation ceremony, the Bar Mitzvah. The episode opens with Harold being given the history of the Bar Mitzvah and the expectations that will follow him thereafter. Being a man, according to Rabbi Goldberg, is all about righteousness, charity, and prayer, cornerstones of the Jewish faith. These things, while of course very positive, come with a lot of responsibility, something that absolutely terrifies Harold. So much so, he loses sleep at the idea of potentially losing his childhood.
I don't want to be a man. I just want to have a party, have fun, and get lots of presents.
The following day, Bar Mitzvah Day, Harold becomes so overwhelmed at the prospect of growing up and becoming a man, he runs away from the synagogue to live on Elk Island, where he can live free of responsibility. Along the way, he runs into Arnold, who tries to convince Harold to return to the synagogue, to no avail. While Harold awaits for the bus to the docks, he worries constantly about the three cornerstones Rabbi Goldberg mentioned before: righteousness, charity, and prayer. These are things he doesn't believe he has within him. However, as the day goes on, Harold proves time and time again that he does. He helps a lost boy find his mother, righteousness. He solves a dispute between two children fighting over a popsicle by giving up his own, charity. And finally, he fends off a potential mugger by saying his prayers, which is, well, prayer.
I don't think I've ever seen you give up a popsicle before, Harold.
Yeah, well, those kids wouldn't shut up.
Essentially, all of these virtues and responsibilities that Harold is so worried about come as almost second nature to him. He doesn't even realize it, and by the end of the day, Harold returns from the docks to undergo his ceremony at his bar mitzvah.
Adonai Elohecha.
This next episode, Four-Eyed Jack, calls for another urban legend alert. The legend, this time around, is told by Grandpa Phil. It goes as much. Four-Eyed Jack was a former tenant in Sunset Arms with the notable trait that he always had to wear his glasses. Four-Eyed Jack really liked free-fried beans. Like, really liked them. Even began looking for new experimental ways to cook them. Then one fated night, his pressure cooker exploded and nobody ever saw him again. But legend says that on dark and stormy nights, his ghost wanders the boarding house in search of his glasses, reeking of refried beans. Ooh. Arnold, ever the optimist, thinks that if he can return the glasses of Four-Eyed Jack, he might be able to put the spirit to rest for good.
Hey, be careful with those glasses, short man.
And with tonight being one of those dark and stormy nights, he and Gerald go ghost hunting in Sunset Arms. Their investigation runs mostly dry, as the kids don't run into any former tenants, but just the current tenants doing miscellaneous activities. And it all culminates in Arnold, Gerald, and the other tenants exploring the house for Four-Eyed Jack. By the end, they don't discover any ghosts, only that Grandpa Phil has a super secret bathroom in the basement, a really nice one at that. So yeah, definitely no ghosts in Sunset Arms, right? This next episode, Helga Blabs It All, kicks off season 3 with a love bomb from Helga. Well, an accidental one.
I'm telling you, Doc, this Arnold guy, he's been
out on my line morning, noon, and night for the past 6 years.
Loopy from Laughing Gas, Helga calls Sunset Arms and leaves a message for Arnold, spilling all the beans about how she truly feels about him. But when she comes to, she realizes the embarrassing gravity of what she's done. Helga goes into panic mode and sneaks into the boarding house to erase the tape by disguising herself as a campfire lass, the Scottish Hillwood equivalent of Girl Scouts.
What do you say we step into my office?
That's a funny place for an office. Unhand me!
Inside, Helga enacts the ultimate heist, dodging and weaving anyone that may potentially see her by hiding in the ventilation ducts. Oh my god. Finally, after nearly blowing her cover, Helga manages to secure the tape from the answering machine and escapes from Sunset Arms with her ultimate secret still intact. Well done, Helga. Moving along to our next episode, Stinky Goes Hollywood, the Yahoo Soda brand is the most popular brand in Hillwood, and today they're looking for their new spokeskid. Hundreds upon thousands of kids arrive at the auditions.
Yahoo Soda. Just drink it.
Next.
Yahoo Soda.
But only one catches the Yahoo executive's eye. Good old Stinky Peterson. As the new Yahoo spokeskid, Stinky enjoys a level of fame he never thought he would experience. Humble as ever, Ol' Stink was always under the impression he was just a regular boy, nothing special.
Why don't you stop by the studio around 5?
Okay.
Ciao, Arnold.
Ciao, Mr. Arnold.
But all this Hollywood stardom treatment makes him feel as though he was meant for something great. What's better, he doesn't seem to let it go to his head too much. A few autographs here and there, but that's all. However, all of this comes crashing down when Stinky and Arnold overhear the executives speaking about the real reason they chose Stinky in the first place. He's goofy, he's dopey, and most of all, he's someone to laugh at. What a cruel thing to say.
It's hilarious. A quote-unquote yahoo selling Yahoo. We're gonna make a fortune off him.
Refusing to be a laughingstock, Stinky decides that he's not going to let the words of the executives get him down. When it comes time to sign the $1 million contract, Stinky stands his ground and denies the offer. Say what you will about Stinky, he is certainly a boy of principle.
Lots of people got pride, but I got $1 million worth. And the way I figure it, that makes me special.
Our next episode, Curly Snaps, shows off the more unstable side of the oddball Curly. The role of ball monitor at PS 118 is one of respect and honor, being held responsible for the distribution and retrieval of all kickballs for recess is a great responsibility, and a position that Curly yearns for.
And best of all, you decide who gets a ball. That commands some hefty respect, doesn't it?
He might even say that it's a role that belongs to him. So you can imagine Curly's anger upon finding out that Sid will in fact be the next week's ball monitor, and not him.
Okay, come and get him. But today is my day.
Well, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't imagine his anger because Curly goes absolutely off the deep end. In a fit of rage, Curly takes the bag of kickballs and locks himself inside of Principal Warts' office. We've got a standoff, folks.
Get back! Back, I say!
I think Curly's finally snapped.
With a nearly endless arsenal of kickballs and a locked door, Curly stands on top of the food chain at PS 118 for the moment, and he will be heard. Despite Principal Warts' best efforts at scaring Curly out, Curly stands strong. And defiant he remains until Arnold and Mr. Simmons approach with a calmer, more sensitive disposition. With his demands set and opinion heard, Curly allows Arnold, Mr. Simmons, and Sid into Principal Warts' office for a negotiation.
It's just Curly, Principal Warts, and they're just kickballs. They're not dangerous.
To end this whole debacle, Sid will finish off his week as ball monitor, and Curly will be granted the role for the next week. Simple as that. Lesson learned, however, you never know when Curly might just snap. Our next episode, Career Day, the kids of PS 118 are taking a day out of class for a twist on the classic Career Day. Now, usually, for a Career Day, students' parents would show up and talk about what they do for work. But this time around, the kids are going for a ride-along. While his classmates get to tag along with exciting careers, Arnold is assigned to ride with the local ice cream man. Not the most intriguing option, I'd say, especially since the ice cream man is a really crabby person.
Oh, and by the way, kids, your career mentor is going to grade your performance at the end of the day, so remember to stay on your best behavior.
Willie, the ice cream man, firstly makes Arnold sit in the freezer. then refuses to allow Arnold to handle the money or even talk to the customers. How is Arnold meant to learn anything about being an ice cream man if he can't participate? Not that Willie is particularly good at his job either. He's mean to the kids, doesn't get the orders right, and more often than not, drives away when someone wants ice cream.
Hey, you gave me strawberry. I wanted chocolate.
This same day, Willie's boss comes by and tells him that since his sales are so low, he has to sell all of the ice cream in his van or he loses his job. This is where Arnold comes in to help. In exchange for a good grade on his career day paper, he will help Willie learn how to become a good ice cream man. Arnold goes on to teach Willie about the key aspects to selling ice cream: respect, a positive attitude, a clean truck, and most importantly, that every customer matters. With Arnold's assistance, Willie sells half of his stock, and when they return to the front of the school where all the other kids are returning from their career days, he sells the other half. With Willie's job safe and sound, Arnold gets an A+ on a successful career day. For our next episode, we have Arnold's Thanksgiving, and things get a little kooky this time of year around Sunset Arms. I mean, let's be honest, things are always a little kooky at Sunset Arms. For Thanksgiving though, it gets especially so because every year, Grandma Gertie is convinced it's a different holiday, the 4th of July. While this is, of course, just a goofy tradition, Arnold wishes he could have an actual Thanksgiving dinner for once, after Mr. Simmons gives a rousing speech about the meaning of the holiday.
How sweet of you to notice.
Can we eat now?
As far as Helga goes, we've sort of come to understand how her family dynamic works. In a lot of ways, she's invisible to her family, never getting the attention or praise like her sister does. For her, there really isn't a lot to be thankful for this Thanksgiving. With both of these scenarios in mind, it comes as no surprise that both Helga and Arnold decide to skip out on their family's Thanksgiving this year. The two wander around the city and the docks, wallowing in the misery that is their holiday.
It must be some kind of sign, Helga.
Maybe you're right.
In their wanderings, though, they come across a seemingly happy family in the window, the family of their teacher, Mr. Simmons. Their teacher, being as caring as he is, welcomes Arnold and Helga into his home for the festivities. However, while here, it becomes clear that even Mr. Simmons' family is wildly dysfunctional as well. This crushes Helga and Arnold, who wish desperately for nothing more than a happy and cheerful holiday. But some helpful words from Mr. Simmons reminds the kids that while his family may be chaotic and dysfunctional, they're his family, and he loves them nonetheless, which is exactly what Thanksgiving is about.
I only hope I'm not too late.
Great, these are great. Get these plastered up on every telephone pole in the city.
The two kids return home to their families and enjoy their holidays with a new gratitude. And besides, by the end, Grandma Gertie realizes the 4th of July is months away.
4th of July? What are you talking about, Arnold?
In this next episode, Part-Time Friends, Arnold and Gerald's friendship hits a bump in the road. The boys are looking for a couple of extra bucks so they can afford to fix their roller skates and mitts. So they jump in to help out at Mrs. Vitello's flower shop.
Mums like a healthy drink too, the daisies also, but they're delicate. Be careful.
They both prove to be incredibly capable employees. Arnold excels at creating flower arrangements, and Gerald is excellent at handling money and the customers. They work together like two peas in a pod. Unfortunately, Mrs. Vitello suffers a bad fall that leaves her out of work for a week, so she leaves the store to Arnold and Gerald.
Don't thank me, you boys deserve every penny.
Well, see you Monday, Mrs. Vitello.
Specifically, Gerald is left in charge of the store itself. This only slightly bothers Arnold at first, but when Gerald lets his newfound position of authority go to his head, things explode between the two lifelong friends, and Arnold leaves the store.
Arnold, you're wasting flowers, you're wasting time, and most of all, you're wasting money.
For a long while, the two refuse to speak to one another, even going so far as to sit on opposite lunch tables at school. Oh man, this is getting serious. However, after a talk with Grandpa Phil about the time that he lost his best friend under similar circumstances, Arnold decides he values his friendship with Gerald too much to let it fade away.
Tell me about it. Sitting next to you is my worst nightmare.
Arnold then returns to find Gerald struggling to keep up with customer demand. The boys set their differences aside and work together to help each customer, and their best friend status is restored. Alright, our next episode is Girl Trouble. We all know Helga's brash way of avoiding admitting her crush to Arnold.
Arnold, darling, hand me that brush, would you?
Yes, Angel.
There's a love.
Well, it seems like Helga's continuous picking and prodding has finally gotten the best of Arnold, and he's grown quite tired of the bullying. Arnold seeks the advice of Grandpa Phil for his girl troubles.
What were you like when you were a little girl, Grandma?
Well, I think I was quite sweet. Well, I can't remember anything before last week, actually.
And Grandpa regales us with his own story of a girl who was quite mean to him, someone by the name of Gertie. According to Grandpa Phil, back when they were little kids, Gertie was incessantly mean to him, just like how Helga is mean to Arnold. While Grandpa Phil never explicitly states that it was because Gertie had a crush on him, it's heavily implied. You know, considering they've grown old together and all that.
Come on, Arnold, she always picks on you in particular. Sometimes I see her jumping rope in front of the house like she was waiting.
The next day at school, while the kids are working on a crafts project, Arnold and Helga get into a fight about some paint. The two tug back and forth on the paint can, and when it spills on Arnold, he lashes back by throwing paint onto Helga.
Where is my kind, thoughtful, generous Arnold? The boy who always turned the other cheek.
After calling Helga, Arnold feels like this whole debacle is behind him, and that Helga might be finally off of his back. But Grandpa Phil and Grandma Gertie know those two are going to be going back and forth for a long time. In the next episode's school play, the students of PS 118 put on their rendition of Romeo and Juliet. And who better to lead in a Shakespearean play than Helga? Well, unfortunately for Helga, she's only given the role of Juliet's fourth understudy behind Rhonda, meaning she's fourth in line to the sacred throne that is Juliet.
I'll be Juliet to Arnold's Romeo when we take our final bow.
As far as Romeo goes, none of the boys want to play the illustrious part on account of the kiss at the end of the play. That leaves Mr. Simmons with no choice but to essentially beg Arnold to take the role. But wait, with Arnold playing Romeo and the big kiss at the end, surely Helga will do whatever she can to take over the role of Juliet, right? Right.
The play's the thing, the way for me to finally tell Arnold how I feel about him.
Throughout this episode, while Arnold has a tough time practicing for his role, Helga is going around trying to get the other girls to drop out. Firstly, she convinces Rhonda by showing her a hideous dress and claiming it's her costume for the play. Rhonda, being ever the fashionista, decides she'd sooner drop out of the play than be seen in public with that.
Really sorry, Mr. Simmons, but I'm going to have to back out of playing Juliet, on religious grounds.
This then leaves the role to Sheena, and immediately Helga gets to work trying to convince Sheena to drop the role. She does so by appealing to Sheena's more squeamish side, exaggerating the gruesomeness and violence of the play, and ultimately convincing Sheena to drop the part.
Perfect. You can start with this. It needs a lot of work.
The role then goes to Phoebe. To get Phoebe to drop, she gets in her head about being on stage in front of so many people. What if she forgets her lines? What if she freezes in front of the entire student body? And of course, with Phoebe's shy and soft-spoken nature, she drops the role.
What if you're suddenly struck with an attack of stage fright and you just freeze out there?
This only leaves one other classmate for Helga to get through, Lila. However, Lila isn't as susceptible to manipulation as her counterparts. In fact, Lila seems to see right through Helga, calling her out for having a crush on Arnold. After Helga begrudgingly admits the truth, Lila drops from the role, meaning Helga is now Juliet.
Oh, and remember, if you tell anyone, I promise.
The kids then put on a surprisingly exceptional rendition of the famous Shakespeare play, especially Helga as Juliet, which, in all honesty, comes as no surprise given her subdued poetic nature. And by the end, Helga shares the kiss she dreamed of with Arnold. In our next episode, Big Gino, we get a look at a bit of the rougher side of PS 118. In this episode, Sid gets involved in some of the more unsavory types at school. You may have noticed Sid in the past few episodes as Gerald's herald during the Urban Legend episodes. Outside of this, Sid can best be characterized as a kind of paranoid and does tend to cause a bit of mischief. However, he is mostly a pretty friendly kid. Although based on some of his antics this episode, you might not believe us. Sid gets caught up being a lackey for the PS 118 mob boss, Big Gino. Throughout the episode, Sid slowly grows more brutish, threatening and extorting the kids around school.
If I don't buy them, you'll hit me, won't you?
He seems a little too far gone in the mob life, until Big Gino asks him to do something he would never even consider, giving Arnold a swirly. Gino orders this from Sid as a test of loyalty, and he's very hesitant at first.
Just one quick swirly. It's just a little dip. You're in, you're out. It's no big deal. Please?
When push comes to shove, Sid shows Gino that his true loyalties lie with his friends, with Arnold, and he takes the swirly himself. Our next episode, Weighing Harold, caps off Season 3. But more importantly is another episode that is surprisingly sensitive in the way it hits on real-world lessons. In this episode, Harold finds himself dealing with some major body image issues after overhearing Sid and Stinky's less-than-friendly comments about his weight. These comments send Harold down a spiral of shame and self-doubt that culminates in him booking a ticket into a weight loss cruise for kids.
And you want to get thin the fun way? Call us now at 1-800-I-AM-HUGE. That's 1-800-I-AM-HUGE.
Upon his return, however, Harold ends up being bigger than when he left, and all the kids are shocked at his dramatic transformation. Once again, sending Harold down a spiral of shame and loathing. He locks himself in his room and doesn't come out. That is, until Arnold arrives to see if he can make Harold feel a little better. With Arnold by his side, Harold reveals that he had never had any thoughts about his image before. But once he overheard the things people were saying, he lost it.
And I'm just a big, dumb, giant, fat freak!
And that is when Arnold hits us with yet another important life lesson. It doesn't matter what everyone else thinks about how you look. It's about what you think. It's all about self-love, essentially. And with this in mind, Harold finds the courage he needs to get back to his old self. The self that he did love.
I can't believe it. Harold, you look fantastic.
It's like you're wasting away.
Our next episode, Back to School, kicks off Season 4 with some Grandpa Phil lore. The episode opens with Grandpa Phil having difficulty helping Arnold with his long division homework. As it turns out, Grandpa never finished the 4th grade because the Great Depression forced him to drop out. Over at PS 118, Principal Warts agrees to let Phil enroll in class. And when it comes to his education, Phil makes sure to take it seriously and absolutely excels.
We were talking about decimals in long division.
Did you say long division?
So much so, Phil jumps ahead 2 grades. However, the kids in the 6th grade class are significantly less accommodating and friendly than those in the lower grades. The difficulties that Grandpa Phil have in the 6th grade are much less academic and more social. To get back at the particularly intimidating 6th grader that harassed him, Phil adopts a tough guy persona.
Hey, Connie, Maria, what's shaking, ladies?
Grandpa, where are you going?
This new persona, while it does well to get over the bullies, has a negative impact on Phil's grades as he skips school and plays pranks. This cycle only ends when Arnold jumps in and confronts Grandpa Phil about his behavior. Thanks to this intervention, Grandpa Phil refocuses and applies himself properly, finally earning that grade school diploma that evaded him all those years ago.
The sum of the square root of any 2 sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side. In your face, Warts!
This next episode, Deconstructing Arnold, gives the perfect glimpse into just how giving and compassionate Arnold is with his friends. Or maybe just how reckless his friends are. Either way, I'm sure you've noticed how, more often than not, Arnold is the calmest kid and the voice of reason throughout all of his friends' antics. Well, in this episode, Arnold is told to mind his own business and let everyone just do their own thing.
Really, Arnold, you are quite the busy one.
Yeah, you're a regular nosy Parker.
Without Arnold's advice available, the kids get caught up in a cacophony of problems. Firstly, Harold and Stinky nearly seriously injure Eugene when they fiddle with his bike and cause him to crash into an aggressive dog's yard. Rhonda finds herself inadvertently confessing her love to Curly, despite the fact she was trying to do the opposite. And Sid gets mixed up by breaking Lorenzo's phone, which he stole. Yikes. These kids sure know how to get into trouble. And of course, they immediately run to Arnold for some sage advice, but he agreed with Helga to stay out of everyone's business. With Arnold out of the question for help, the kids then decide to turn to the source of Arnold's absence, Helga. Helga's take on giving advice is a lot less, caring and honest than Arnold's, a lot less. She urges the other kids to weasel their way around and find ways to shift blame and deceive those they've wronged. Of course, this approach backfires for everybody involved, and now their problems have become so much worse.
How does that make you feel? Give Daddy some sugar.
With their problems worsened and anger at Helga intensified, Helga has no choice but to convince Arnold to come back to being their source of advice. And with Arnold back on board as the local wise man, the kids find honest and compassionate ways to face up to their mistakes. Moving forward to our next episode, Fighting Families. In this episode, Arnold and the tenants of Sunset Arms compete in a game show, and this offers a glimpse into one of the more subtle themes of Hey Arnold, familyhood, and more specifically, non-traditional family dynamics.
And the winner is Arnold! There seems to be a smudge over the last name.
Upon hearing about their potential participation in a family game show, Mr. Wynn, Mr. Potts, and Oscar try their hardest to impress Arnold with their hidden talents. These interactions highlight the sort of dysfunctional and chaotic dynamic of the tenants living in Sunset Arms, but also highlights the idea that they all do consider themselves one big family.
Hey, Arnold, how was school? By the way, I'm very good with facts and trivia. Did you know it took 2,873 bricks to make this boarding house?
When it comes time for the actual show, Arnold's time is comprised of Grandpa Phil, Grandma Gertie, Mr. Wynn, and Mr. Potts, with Oscar on the sidelines as an alternate. Their opponent, a family from PS 119, serves as the exact opposite of Arnold's family. On the surface, they seem like the perfect family with matching jumpsuits, a real picture-perfect looking family.
I'm great at the limbo. I'll go first.
I won a limbo contest in 1930.
At first, things go south for the Sunset Arms family as nobody can seem to get along, and the chaotic nature of their relationships causes them to fall behind. However, following a rousing speech from Arnold, the Sunset Arms family is able to pull themselves together for one another when it matters most, with everyone doing their part to even the score. On the other hand, the family from PS 119 begins to fall apart at the seams, with infighting and arguing.
I'm not grabbing that thing!
We're here to win. I said move it! Move it now, Missy!
By the end, the Sunset Arms family's ability to put aside their differences for their love of one another places them at the top of the scoreboard, and they win the coveted game show. Our next episode, Headless Cabby, calls for yet another urban legend alert. This time, we've got the legend of the Headless Cabby, as told by Arnold. The story goes that on a misty autumn night, a cabbie was riding around in his carriage when he picked up a lady. This woman was in distress after losing her dog, so she had the cabbie ride through the park. This night, in particular, was quite cold, and so the woman offered the man her red scarf. Throughout the woods, the two of them could hear a dog barking, and the woman implores the driver to ride faster and faster. They see the dog and chase him through a tunnel, barely missing a man with a golden hook for a hand and veering away. The cabbie tries to regain control of the carriage, but the red scarf gets caught on a low-hanging branch, and before anyone realizes, the carriage is now being controlled by the Headless Cabby.
That's him! My doggy's down the hill! Go down there! Hurry! Hurry!
Legends say that on a foggy autumn night in the park, you can still hear the dog barking, the wheels racing along the cobblestone, and the maniacal laughter of the ghost lady. And then, when it's too late, you'll see the carriage coming for you, being driven by the Headless Cabby. Coincidentally, this is a particularly foggy night, and the kids have to cut through the park to get some ice cream.
Fastest way. Don't be a baby. Come on, man. There's no horse and buggy, or laughing lady, or headless cabby.
Soon after beginning their walk, the kids come across a Scotty dog, just like the one from the story. Then, minutes later, a distant clomping noise can be heard, just like the sound of hooves on cobblestone. But luckily, it's just Eugene practicing his clog dancing in the park at night, for some reason. And just when things can't get any more coincidental, the kids approach the end of a tunnel. And along the outside, a man with a golden hook for an arm. The kids begin to run away, and Arnold tries to calm everyone down since the story he told was just a story, nothing more.
Speaking of quinky dinks, Arnold, looky there.
However, just as everyone begins to settle, a horse and buggy race through the fog with a headless cabby. But as it turns out, there is no headless cabby. It's just good old Ernie making an extra buck with Mr. Wynn. So there may be no headless cabby, but I call that another urban legend conquered.
Cabby, I'd like a ride around the park, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I lost my Scotty dog a few weeks ago.
Our next episode, Veterans Day, pulls us away from urban legends into a major lore alert for Grandpa Phil and Gerald's dad, Martin. As I'm sure you've gathered from the title of the episode, it's Veterans Day in Hillwood. For Arnold and Gerald, this is exciting for one reason, an extra day off from school. However, for Grandpa Phil and Martin, it's a day of remembrance and reverence for those that served in past wars.
I'll never get to tell my story. Oh well, I'll have my dessert.
Unfortunately for them, though, it seems like most residents in Hillwood think similarly to Arnold and Gerald, simply happy to have an extra day off from work or school. To show the boys just what Veterans Day is all about, they decide they're going on a little road trip to the Capitol for the parade.
Can you just for once tell the truth about what happened to you in the war, instead of one of your crazy made-up stories?
On the way to the Capitol, Grandpa Phil regales the kids with his stories from World War I. According to Grandpa, he was the reason that American forces were able to breach through the German lines. His story goes that he was given a super-secret mission to deliver spoiled Cam somewhere behind enemy lines.
Spam is a delicious, nutritious, ham-based product enjoyed by millions of people all over the world for more than 50 years.
However, en route, he was captured by German soldiers. With some reverse psychology and then reverse psychology, the Germans were convinced that the food was in fact good. The following morning, all the soldiers fell ill, and Grandpa Phil calls in his success to his superiors. Through this act, there was a breach in the German front line, allowing the American soldiers to march right into Berlin and ultimately win the war.
Take that, Hitler! Gonna beat you red, white, and blue! Nein, Peter!
Gerald's dad, Martin, then jumps in and tells his story of his time during the war in Vietnam. But his is a lot less dramatic. Martin never actually went to the front lines, since his training was never fully completed. Because of this, his experience with Vietnam was primarily from behind a desk as a file clerk. While that may not be the most adventurous of war stories, Martin does go on to tell about a time he had to travel north, where a battle had just occurred. While there, he saw the after effects and met someone named Private Miller who was injured. Martin did what he could to help the private by making a makeshift bandage out of his papers. Arnold and Gerald both find themselves almost disappointed by these stories. Arnold because he knows that Grandpa Phil has a tendency to over-exaggerate, and Gerald because he feels like his father's experience with war was almost boring.
I really want Gerald to understand what it means to serve your country. That it's not about being a big hero, but doing your best.
The next day, though, at the Veterans Day parade, Phil shows Arnold the monument erected in his honor, and Gerald sees that his father saved that young Private Miller. By the end of the day, both boys find that Veterans Day isn't just about an extra day off. Instead, they get a new appreciation for the holiday. This next episode, Helga on the Couch, is another one of those episodes that just hits you right in the feels, and also calls for a major character lore alert for Helga. All the way back in Season 1, we touched on Helga's home life and her relationship with her sister. In this episode, Helga unpacks everything after being urged into therapy by Dr. Bliss. Of course, given Helga's tough exterior, it takes some time for Dr. Bliss to get through to Helga about her emotions. However, after allowing Helga to get comfortable, she begins to speak on what her life is like at home, especially in regards to her sister. As we touched on earlier in the video, Helga is ignored by her parents in favor of her perfect sister. In her words, Helga feels like nobody in her own house. This feeling of her invisibility in her own home isn't exactly new either.
They never listened to me. I think I'd go crazy if it wasn't for Arnold. Arnold.
When discussing her relationship with her father, Helga tells a story of how her father blew off taking her to preschool so that he could spend more time with Olga.
Hey, who's taking me to preschool?
Yeah, in a minute, Olga.
No, I'm Helga, Dad.
This left little Helga forced to walk to preschool. Helga then trudged through a rainy day covered in mud, walking through alleys just to get to school at such a young age. Clearly, Helga's neglect at home has been going on for a long time. Following this story, Helga gets into the details about her crush on Arnold. With a family that hardly pays her any mind, Arnold proved to be the only person that ever showed her any sort of kindness, all the way back in preschool.
Hi, nice bow. Huh? I like your bow because it's pink like your pants.
This may be where Helga's crush began, but it's also where her need to keep it a secret and her aggressive attitude stems from as well. One day, preschool-aged Harold caught a glimpse of Helga's affections and started to make fun of her for it. The entire class erupts in laughter directed at Helga, but instead of being embarrassed, she stood up and threatened Harold and everyone else in class. From that day forward, Helga was at the top of the food chain with her class.
I love you, Arnold, and I want to marry you.
Helga's session with Dr. Bliss ends after she announces her love for Arnold out loud to another person, allowing a massive weight to be lifted from her shoulders, and I'd imagine an even heavier burden lifted from her mind.
It's okay to be obsessed about him. You know, the shrines and stuff, the 3 a.m. vigils, the tantric spells.
Our next episode, Parents' Day, continues the train of major character lore alerts, this time for Arnold himself. It's time at school for the Parents' Day Tournament weekend, a series of competitions where kids and their parents participate in various activities for a trophy at the very end. This proves to be a relatively sensitive subject for Arnold, considering he doesn't know who his parents are. Arnold has been living with his grandparents for pretty much his entire life. The only idea he has as to who his parents are comes in the form of stories Grandpa Phil tells him before bed.
Are you coming too, Arnold? I mean, by bringing your grandma and grandpa as parents?
Nonetheless, when it comes time for the tournament, Phil and Gertie are excited to be there to support their boy, Arnold. Things go well for the majority of the competition. That is until the very end, when Big Bob gets way too competitive and slings some cruel words at Arnold, calling him an orphan boy. These words clearly stun and hurt Arnold deeply.
We are not gonna let some orphan boy and his ancestors win this Parents' Weekend thing. You understand?
And that night, he expresses his feelings to his grandparents. Grandpa Phil goes upstairs to talk with Arnold and regales him with the story of what happened to his parents, the real story. Arnold's father and mother were both scientists leading different research parties in the jungles of San Lorenzo when they first met. The two were so much alike, and when it came time to go to their separate ways back to their respective parties, it's as though fate stepped in. A rock nearly crushes Arnold's father and his companion Eduardo. The two are saved by Arnold's soon-to-be mother, and from that day on, Arnold's father and mother became inseparable.
Hello.
As far as what happened for them to leave Arnold, the story goes as such. While Arnold was still a toddler, Eduardo approached Arnold's mother and father for aid back in San Lorenzo. There's a group of indigenous mountain people that are suffering from a grave illness, an illness that only Arnold's mother and father can cure. Though they initially decline since they have a baby to look after, they are ultimately swayed to return to the jungle to help where they can. And that was the last anyone ever saw them. It was supposed to be just a week-long expedition, but nobody's heard from them since, and their plane was never found. After learning the truth of his parents' disappearance, Arnold realizes that despite the fact that Grandpa Phil and Grandma Gertie aren't his real parents, they've done nothing but love and support him no matter what.
We'll be back next week, little buddy. Then I'll take you to the park.
Mommy loves you so much.
So they return to the Parents' Day Tournament. They end up losing to Phoebe's family, but Arnold is just so happy to participate nonetheless. Still, there's always a little bit of Arnold that wonders about his parents, and the episode closes on his dream of flying his parents' plane into the sky. Don't worry, I'll give you a second here to wipe the tears from your eyes. I definitely need a second. Our next episode, Stuck in a Tree, kicks off the final season. In this episode, poor unlucky Eugene finds himself stuck in a tree with no easy way down. Arnold, ever the compassionate guy, does what he can to help him, but inadvertently breaks a branch, trapping himself up there as well.
How long did you say you waited until I came by?
Oh, not more than 2 or 3 hours.
Hours pass by before anyone comes to that side of the park, and their new savior, Harold. Only Harold, too, gets himself trapped up there as well. Yikes.
You guys are so stupid. Getting stuck in a tree.
Now introducing another member of the PS118 student body, Chocolate Boy. Chocolate Boy, likes chocolate a lot. And you know, that's kind of it. Right now, though, Chocolate Boy is the kid's only hope to get down from the tree. You know, if he can avoid the temptation of chocolate. Hours pass with no sign of Chocolate Boy. The boys begin to fear the worst, imagining Hillwood progressing years and years into the future with him still stuck in the tree. Imagining all their friends growing old with no idea that they're still stuck up in the branches.
I'm never gonna grow up or go to college or get married. I mean, who am I gonna marry? That squirrel?
And just when all hope seems lost, Chocolate Boy arrives back at the tree, chocolate in hand and the fire department in tow. Our next episode, Chocolate Boy takes that chocolate-crazed kid from the last episode and gives us a glimpse into some darker sort of themes. Yep, this is gonna be one of those hard-hitting reality-of-life episodes disguised as a cartoon. I'm sure you can guess the kid named Chocolate Boy really likes chocolate. Oftentimes, this is a source of bullying directed at him. And today, Wolfgang, one of the older kids, decides to play a little game with Chocolate Boy. Wolfgang says that if Chocolate Boy can go 2 weeks with no chocolate, he'll give him a 10-pound bag of chocolate. This proves a daunting task. So Chocolate Boy enlists the help of Arnold to get through the 2 weeks. It's a rough time, but ultimately with Arnold's help and support, Chocolate Boy makes it the whole 2 weeks. However, upon receiving the 10-pound bag, Chocolate Boy devours it on the same day. Desperate for more, Chocolate Boy goes so far as to dance for Wolfgang for malt balls and even sift through garbage just for a single lick of chocolate. This proves to be Chocolate Boy's tipping point. He doesn't like how he's essentially become a clown to the other kids, nor does he enjoy the fact that he's willing to stoop so low as to rummage through dumpsters. He needs a change. So once again, he approaches Arnold for help. The two try just about everything to end Chocolate Boy's obsession with chocolate. A slideshow of all the negative side effects, sweating the chocolate out of his system in a sauna, finding potential substitutes, but nothing seems to click. That is, until Arnold finds the root of Chocolate Boy's need for chocolate.
These are okay. They're pretty good, but they make me think about chocolate.
He eats it because he misses his old nanny that treated him very well. Before she left for Delaware, she gave preschool-age Chocolate Boy a bag of chocolate. Ever since, he's eaten chocolate as a way to remember her, in hopes that she might one day come back. This realization on Chocolate Boy's part proves to be the push he needs to get off chocolate. And in the end, Chocolate Boy may need to find a new name because he's officially cleared of his obsession.
You seem to really like those radishes. Yeah, I really like them a lot. A real lot.
Man, shut up! Moving right into our next episode, Married. In this episode, Rhonda deems herself a love guru with her origami marriage predictor. Through her origami device, Rhonda and the whole class is convinced that she knows who will marry who in the future.
Oh, that's wonderful! I'm gonna marry Eugene!
Oh, well, gosh, I'm sure we'll be very happy.
Arnold takes a spin with the marriage prediction and is completely taken aback when the results come back Helga. He takes the test about 100 times, and the answer is always the same. Helga, Helga, Helga.
Helga Pataki.
One more time.
No, Arnold! You've done the test 110 times!
She overhears Arnold's results, and knowing Helga, she reacts opposite to how Arnold does. Completely delighted and swooning. Clearly, this origami prediction impacts both Arnold and Helga a lot. That night, they both dream about the potential future they'd have together. For Helga, everything is just one big fantasy full of love and romance. She dreams of a large extravagant wedding in France, one where Arnold vows his undying love to her. The two have a glorious honeymoon in the city of love, and Arnold sways the advances of Lila.
I'll win you back, Arnold. I'll win you back somehow. Wait, I just remembered I can't swim.
Helga's dream life continues with her becoming president of the United States, with all her friends being different members of her staff. Where Helga's dream life is full of romance and success, it's also full of adventure. One night, while doing, presidential things, Secretary Phoebe bursts in to tell her that Arnold has been kidnapped. Helga immediately flies off on Air Force One to a castle in Italy. Here, Helga fights off ninjas and evades complicated security measures to reach her lover in the control room. As it turns out, the international villain that kidnapped Arnold is none other than Lila.
I told you I loved you, but you shunned me. I tried to forget about you just ever so hard, but I couldn't.
Gerald and the U.S. Secret Service arrive to evacuate President Helga and First Man Arnold via hot air balloon, and the reunited couple share a romantic moment together. Now, while Helga's dream is one of love, romance, and adventure, Arnold's is more of a nightmare. Arnold dreams of his wedding being confusing and scary, one where Helga practically tricks him into saying I do.
Here comes your bride, Lila.
No such luck, football head.
As far as their home life goes, Arnold and Helga live at a home with the Pataki family. Helga insists on staying home while Big Bob Pataki tells Arnold he has to work in his beeper warehouse. Arnold works grueling shifts and comes home to 3 crying children with no help from Helga. Arnold dreams that his future with Helga is one of chaos and cold-heartedness on Helga's part. But things actually take a turn when Arnold calls out Helga's subdued kindness and compassion. The Pataki house fades around the dream, and Helga's softer side begins to come out. However, just before Helga can admit her love for Arnold, he is woken up by his alarm. With the dream over, Arnold finds that he has a lot to think about, and that maybe marrying Helga wouldn't be as bad as he thinks. Our next 2 episodes, The Journal, are perhaps the most important character lore alerts of the entire series. In this episode, it's the anniversary of the day of Miles and Stella, Arnold's parents' disappearance. It's a tough day for Arnold because he constantly misses and thinks about them. After spending the large majority of the day sad and curious, Arnold decides it might be simply time to move on. so he packs all the things he keeps around that reminds him of his parents and he moves them into the attic, including his hat. Yeah, the hat. This is getting pretty serious. While putting the box away, Arnold stumbles upon a journal, his father's journal. The journal details the stories of Miles' time in San Lorenzo, starting with the day he met Stella. We mentioned before how the two met in San Lorenzo on research, and this holds true. Miles was an anthropologist conducting research in the area, and Stella was a botanist and a physician seeking to bring medicine to the indigenous people of San Lorenzo. Of course, the two very quickly fell in love with one another, and went on a lot of wild adventures.
Maybe she thinks I'm a goof. Oh well, call me a romantic, but I think we're perfect for each other.
During one of these adventures, they're saved by a mysterious individual, one of the Green-Eyed People, the original inhabitants of San Lorenzo. As a way to thank the Green Eyes for saving their lives, Miles and Stella recover an ancient relic called La Corazon from La Sombra, a dangerously wicked pirate. After all this adventure, the journal continues about Miles and Stella's wedding day. It's a beautiful ceremony in the jungles of San Lorenzo, and as a thank you for returning their relic, the Green Eyes give Miles and Stella a piglet, who would grow up to be the family pet, Abner.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's fire up the grill.
No, we can't eat her. She's a gift.
On their honeymoon, Miles and Stella are approached by Eduardo. The Green Eyes have been struck by a grave illness and have to return to San Lorenzo, leaving us with a cliffhanger for Part 2. For The Journal Part 2, Miles and Stella arrive back in San Lorenzo to help the Green-Eyed People with the illness. Stella determines that it is a sleeping illness that is affecting everyone, and she knows just the serum to make in order to cure the Green-Eyed People's ailment.
The nose whisker of a wild Bolivian boar and the root of a Panamanian sapote tree.
Right. Sounds easy.
The two of them gather all the ingredients they need and they place the serum at a stone monument. A few nights following, Miles and Stella learn that they're pregnant. On the day of the birth, things seem to go horribly awry. Miles, Stella, and Eduardo are cut off in the jungle thanks to an erupting volcano. So not only do they need to find somewhere for Stella to lie down, they also need to run for their lives. While on the precipice of disaster, Miles seen green smoke in the distance coming from a temple of the Green Eyes. Laid out inside the temple is a bed, as though they were waiting for Stella. The eruption grows stronger and more deadly, but in a sudden moment, everything falls quiet, except for a crying baby, Arnold.
It was my dad's name.
Arnold.
I can't believe they didn't name you Phil.
Arnold's arrival into the world very definitely shook things up for Miles and Stella in the best way possible. However, the jungle really isn't the best place to raise a newborn, so after an incident with a snake, Miles and Stella decide to move back to the States to Hillwood. Of course, everything from there is history, but the journal does in fact confirm that the story told by Grandpa earlier in the series was in fact true.
He's a stupendous guy. Brilliant, funny, handsome, erudite, classy. Really the perfect...
Grandpa!
Eduardo did return to Hillwood to enlist the aid of Miles and Stella on behalf of the Green People. Although heartbroken at the fact that his parents are gone, Arnold is still overjoyed to have the opportunity to learn so much about them. In fact, Arnold learns a lot more than he expected, because just as the episode ends, he discovers a map at the end of the journal detailing how he could find his parents. But that is a story for another time. And with that, our coverage of Hey Arnold comes to a close. Feel free to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one, and remember, if you're ever in a pickle, what would Arnold do? Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.